Sometimes, the people we trust the most can shatter our hearts in the cruelest ways. What would you do if the person you loved turned your world upside down in a single night? Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Unheard Stories. Before we dive in, let's get to know each other. Where are you all tuning in from? Comment below. I'd love to hear your stories, too. It's a story of a seemingly perfect marriage built on love, trust, and years of shared dreams, until a single night at an extravagant party exposed a shocking betrayal. What followed was a journey through heartbreak, anger, and ultimately, revenge that you won't believe. Meet Ethan and Clara, a couple who seemed to have it all. Ethan, a steady and thoughtful man in his early 40s, worked as a project manager at a well-known construction firm. His days were filled with tight deadlines, long meetings, and the satisfaction of building dreams brick by brick. Clara, on the other hand, was the social butterfly of their neighborhood. In her late 30s, she managed a boutique in town, loved hosting dinner parties, and thrived in the company of friends. Their life in Oakwood Heights, an affluent suburb with tree-lined streets and picture-perfect homes, appeared idyllic. They had 2 kids who kept them busy with soccer games and school events, a golden retriever that loved lounging in their spacious backyard, and a tight-knit circle of friends who shared their weekend barbecues and holiday getaways. But beneath the polished exterior, cracks were beginning to form in their 15-year marriage. Ethan, ever practical, preferred quiet nights at home, unwinding with a good book or a game with the kids. Clara, however, craved excitement. She loved the thrill of big parties, fancy events, and making new connections. Over time, their different desires had created a distance between them. Still, Ethan had no reason to question Clara's loyalty, until that one night at a party. Looking back, there had been subtle signs, little things that didn't add up. But Ethan, trusting to a fault, never let doubt creep into his mind. Little did he know, everything he thought he knew about his wife and their life together was about to come crashing down. It was a cool autumn evening when Ethan and Clara arrived at the grand house of Olivia and Daniel Harper. The Harpers were known for throwing the most glamorous parties in Oakwood Heights. Their sprawling estate was dazzling, with perfectly manicured gardens, a glowing fountain in the driveway, and a front door flanked by towering marble columns. Inside, the scene was even more breathtaking. Soft jazz played in the background as guests mingled under sparkling chandeliers. Servers in crisp uniforms carried trays of wine glasses and artfully prepared appetizers. Olivia, radiant in a sleek black dress, floated through the crowd, her laugh charming everyone she passed. Clara, dressed in a stunning emerald gown, fit right in. She loved these parties, and her ease with the crowd was evident as she laughed, hugged, and chatted effortlessly with everyone. Ethan, more reserved, stuck close to the bar, nursing a whiskey. He wasn't much for small talk, but he didn't mind. This was Clara's world, and he was happy to let her shine. As the evening wore on, something began to nag at Ethan. It started with the whispers. Groups of guests leaned in close, speaking in hushed tones that were followed by knowing smiles and sly glances. Ethan couldn't make out what they were saying, but it was enough to unsettle him. Then he noticed the bowl. It sat on a side table in the Harper's grand dining room, its sleek glass surface reflecting the soft light of the chandelier above. At first, Ethan assumed it was a decorative centerpiece or maybe a valet system for car keys. But as he watched, he realized there was more to it. Women, impeccably dressed in designer gowns, approached the bowl with subtle but deliberate movements. They would glance around, drop their keys in, and walk away with faint smirks on their faces. Meanwhile, the men exchanged sly grins and nudges, like schoolboys sharing a naughty joke. Ethan's chest tightened as realization dawned. This wasn't just a party. It was a swinger lottery. The guests were casually tossing their car keys into the bowl, and by the end of the night, they'd be pairing off with someone else's spouse. He scanned the room, his heart pounding. Where was Clara? His eyes finally found her near the fireplace, laughing with Daniel Harper. Her posture was relaxed, her laugh natural, but something about her demeanor made Ethan uneasy. She seemed entirely too comfortable, too at ease in this bizarre setting. Unable to stay silent, Ethan made his way to her, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to talk. Now." Clara's smile faltered for just a second before she replied. "Ethan, can it wait?" "No," he said firmly, taking her arm and steering her toward a quieter room. The tension in Ethan's chest was suffocating. What was Clara hiding? How long had she known about this? The evening had started as just another party, but it was turning into something that would change everything Ethan thought he knew about his wife. And their marriage, Ethan closed the door behind them, sealing off the low hum of the party outside. The room was dimly lit, the flicker of a fireplace casting shadows on the walls. Clara crossed her arms and leaned against a bookshelf, her expression a mix of annoyance and defiance. "What is this, Ethan?" she asked, her voice clipped. Ethan turned to face her, his heart pounding so loudly he could barely hear his own words. "Don't play games with me, Clara. You knew what this party was really about, didn't you?" Her eyes flickered, a split-second hesitation that gave her away. "Ethan, don't overreact. It's not what you think." "Not what I think," he repeated, his voice rising. "I've been watching. The whispers, the looks, the keys in that bowl. This isn't just a party. It's some sick game, and you knew about it. How long, Clara? How long have you been keeping this from me?" She sighed, exasperated, and uncrossed her arms. "Ethan, it's not a big deal. Everyone here knows. It's just fun. A way to spice things up. People get bored, okay? You don't have to make this into some massive betrayal." "A way to spice things up?" Ethan's voice cracked with disbelief. "Do you hear yourself? We're married, Clara. 15 years. And you think this," he gestured wildly toward the door, "is okay? Did you even think about how I'd feel?" Clara straightened, her tone hardening. "You're always so predictable, Ethan. So safe. You don't understand what it's like to feel trapped, to want more. I love you, but I'm suffocating. I just wanted a little excitement, something different." Ethan took a step back, as if her words had physically struck him. "Trapped? Suffocating? Clara, I gave you everything. A home, a family, a life together. And you're telling me that wasn't enough for you?" Her voice softened, almost pleading now. "It's not about you not being enough, Ethan. It's about me needing something else. This doesn't have to change anything between us. It's just—" "No," he interrupted, his tone icy. "It changes everything. You lied to me. You put me in this situation without even talking to me. Did you really think I'd just go along with it?" Clara threw up her hands in frustration. "Because I knew how you'd react. Look at you now, judging, angry, blowing this way out of proportion. Not everyone is content to sit on the couch watching reruns every Saturday night. Ethan, some of us need more." Ethan's jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "You call this more? Clara, you've destroyed every ounce of trust one had in you. Every moment of this night has been a betrayal. And now you're standing here defending it." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of Ethan's words hung in the air. Finally, Clara's shoulders sagged. "What do you want me to say, Ethan?" He shook his head, his voice low and trembling. "I want the truth. But I can already see it, Clara. I don't even know who you are anymore." Ethan sat in the quiet darkness of their living room, his thoughts racing. Clara had gone upstairs hours ago, leaving him to wrestle with the weight of her betrayal. Anger burned in his chest, but beneath it was something deeper, a cold determination. He wasn't going to let her actions destroy everything he had worked so hard to build. If Clara thought she could shatter their marriage and walk away unscathed, she was wrong. By morning, Ethan had made up his mind. He called his old college friend, Nathan Wells, a highly respected divorce attorney. Within hours, Ethan was sitting across from Nathan in his sleek downtown office, the city skyline stretching out behind him. Nathan listened intently as Ethan recounted everything. The party, the key bowl, Clara's confessions. When Ethan finished, Nathan leaned back in his chair, his expression grave. "This is a mess, Ethan, but it's not hopeless. If Clara's been unfaithful and you have evidence, we can build a strong case. Custody, asset division, it'll all lean in your favor. But we need proof." Ethan nodded, I'll do whatever it takes. She's been lying to me for God knows how long. I want the truth out in the open. Nathan grabbed a notepad and began outlining a plan. First, we'll get a private investigator. They'll dig into Clara's activities, texts, emails, even surveillance if needed. The goal is to gather solid, indisputable evidence. Do you know who she's involved with? Ethan clenched his fists. I have a hunch. Daniel Harper. She was too comfortable with him at the party. Nathan nodded. That's a start. I'll put our best PI on it. In the meantime, start gathering anything you have access to. Phone records, receipts, anything suspicious. Over the next few days, Ethan threw himself into the task. He combed through their shared accounts, his hands trembling as he uncovered hotel charges and late-night rideshare receipts that didn't add up. Every new discovery felt like a fresh wound, but he refused to stop. Meanwhile, Nathan's private investigator, a no-nonsense man named Garrett, was hard at work. Within a week, Garrett had compiled a folder of damning evidence. Photos of Clara meeting Daniel at a downtown hotel. Texts exchanged between them, full of flirtation and plans for secret meetups. Ethan sat in Nathan's office again as Garrett laid out the evidence. Each piece felt like a nail in the coffin of his marriage. The texts were the worst. Seeing Clara's words, her excitement for someone else, left him feeling hollow. Nathan placed a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. This is hard, but you're doing the right thing. With this evidence, we'll not only have grounds for divorce but a strong case for custody and assets. Clara made her choices, and now she'll have to live with the consequences. Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. He had been blindsided by Clara's betrayal, but now he was in control. The pieces were falling into place, and he was ready to take the next step. Ethan sat in his car outside the cafe, his heart pounding as he watched Clara through the window. She was seated with Olivia Harper, laughing over what looked like an elaborate brunch spread. To anyone else, it might have seemed like just another sunny morning in Oakwood Heights. But to Ethan, this was the culmination of weeks of planning. He tightened his grip on the envelope in his hand. The divorce papers were inside, a tangible declaration of the end of their marriage. It wasn't the way he'd imagined their story would end, but Clara had made her choice, and now so had he. Nathan's voice echoed in his mind. Timing is key. Catch her off guard. Keep the upper hand. Ethan took a deep breath, stepped out of the car, and walked toward the cafe. When Clara spotted him, her smile faltered. Ethan, what are you doing here? She asked, her voice laced with unease. Can we talk? He said, keeping his tone calm but firm. Olivia raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension. I'll give you two a moment, she said, standing and leaving with a quick glance at Clara. Ethan set the envelope on the table. These are for you, he said simply. Clara's eyes widened as she opened the envelope, her expression shifting from confusion to shock. Divorce papers? Ethan, are you serious? Very serious, he replied. You lied to me, Clara. You betrayed me. I've spent weeks piecing together the truth. And now it's time you face the consequences. Her voice dropped to a hiss. You're blowing this out of proportion. It was one party, one mistake. One mistake. Ethan interrupted, his voice rising. You've been sneaking around with Daniel for months. I have proof, Clara. Hotel receipts, texts, photos. Don't insult me by pretending this is nothing. Clara's face paled. She glanced around, realizing that nearby patrons were now watching. Ethan, not here, she whispered, her voice trembling. Why not? You weren't worried about being discreet before. Enjoy your brunch, Ethan said, turning on his heel and walking away. The fallout was swift and brutal. By the time Clara returned home, the news had already spread. Nathan's journalist contact had done their job well. The Oakwood Times ran an explosive exposé on the Harpers' exclusive parties, complete with anonymous accounts from other attendees. While Clara's name wasn't mentioned directly, the scandal quickly engulfed her social circle. Whispers turned into full-blown gossip. People who once adored Clara began to avoid her. At the grocery store, at the kids' school events, she felt the weight of their judgment in every sideways glance and hushed conversation. For Olivia and Daniel Harper, the fallout was even worse. The article painted a damning picture of their swinger parties, complete with salacious details about the infamous Key Bowl. Olivia's position on the local charity board was revoked, and Daniel's real estate business took a nosedive as clients pulled out of deals. Their once grand social standing crumbled overnight. Clara confronted Ethan a few days later, her face flushed with anger. "Was this you? Did you feed them that story?" Ethan stood in the kitchen, calm and composed. "I didn't write the article, but I made sure the truth came out. People deserve to know what's been happening behind closed doors." Her voice cracked as she shouted, "Do you have any idea what you've done? You've ruined my life." Ethan's eyes hardened. "No, Clara. You ruined your own life. I'm just making sure you can't hide from it." The divorce process moved quickly. The overwhelming evidence of Clara's infidelity left her with little leverage. Ethan was awarded primary custody of their 2 kids, the family home, and a significant portion of their savings. Clara, on the other hand, moved into a modest apartment across town, far from the life she once flaunted. For Ethan, the days following the divorce were bittersweet. He had won, but at a cost. He spent nights going through old photo albums, the weight of the past pressing down on him. But as weeks turned into months, he began to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The community's whispers about Clara eventually faded, but her social standing never recovered. The Harpers' estate, once the pinnacle of Oakwood Heights luxury, was put up for sale, a silent acknowledgement of their fall from grace. Ethan, meanwhile, found peace in the new rhythm of his life. He focused on his kids, his work, and slowly the possibility of starting over. What Clara had torn apart, Ethan was determined to rebuild, stronger and better than before. The days after the divorce were far from easy. Ethan found himself in a house that felt strangely quiet despite being filled with his 2 kids, Mia and Logan. The laughter and chaos that once defined their family life had been replaced by an awkward silence, as if everyone was unsure how to act. The first few weeks were the hardest. Mornings were chaotic as Ethan struggled to get the kids ready for school while keeping up with his demanding job. Evenings were filled with homework battles, missed soccer practices, and frozen dinners. But slowly he found a rhythm. Mia, his 10-year-old daughter, began opening up to him more during their nightly story times. She was wise beyond her years and seemed to sense that her dad needed someone to lean on. Logan, a mischievous 7-year-old, was harder to read. He missed his mom but found solace in Ethan's newfound presence. Ethan made it his mission to create new traditions. Saturday mornings became pancake days, where the kitchen was a mess of flour and syrup by the time they were done. Friday nights were movie marathons, complete with popcorn and blanket forts. These small moments of joy reminded Ethan that their family, though fractured, could still thrive. There were challenges, of course. Running into old acquaintances who still whispered about the divorce was never easy. There were nights when loneliness crept in, and he wondered if he would ever feel whole again. But Ethan was determined to move forward. He also threw himself into work, taking on more challenging projects. The satisfaction of completing something tangible, something that couldn't betray him, was a welcome distraction. One crisp autumn afternoon, Ethan took the kids to the local park. The air was filled with the sound of children laughing and the rustle of leaves underfoot. Logan was busy climbing the tallest tree he could find, while Mia kicked a soccer ball with a boy her age. Ethan sat on a bench, sipping coffee, content to watch his kids in their element. "Is that your daughter?" a voice asked. Ethan looked up to see a woman standing nearby, holding a to-go cup. She was about his age, with kind brown eyes and a warm smile. Her blonde hair was tied back in a loose braid, and she had an easy, natural presence that immediately put him at ease. "Yeah," Ethan replied, nodding toward Mia. "She's the one with the impressive footwork." "That's your son she's playing with?" The woman laughed. "That's Max. He's usually more interested in video games than soccer. But Mia seems to be changing that." "I'm Ethan," he said, extending a hand. "Rachel," she replied, shaking his hand. They fell into an easy conversation, sharing stories about parenting and laughing over their kids' quirks. For the first time in months, Ethan felt a connection that wasn't clouded by anger or betrayal. As the kids wrapped up their game, Rachel turned to him with a smile. "Maybe we'll see you here again next weekend?" Ethan nodded. "Maybe we will." That evening, as he sat at the kitchen table helping Mia with her math homework, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Life hadn't turned out the way he planned, but maybe that wasn't such a bad thing, with Mia and Logan by his side and the possibility of a fresh start on the horizon. Ethan realized that this wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of something new. Sitting on the porch one quiet evening, Ethan watched the golden sunset wash over the neighborhood. The past few months had been a whirlwind of pain, growth, and self-discovery. Betrayal had shattered the foundation of his life, but in its place, he had built something stronger, something more authentic. The divorce taught Ethan more than he ever wanted to know about resilience. He had learned to weather the storm, to pick up the broken pieces, and to rebuild not just for himself but for his kids. Mia and Logan had been his anchor, their laughter and love reminding him that even in the darkest moments, there was still light to be found. Ethan had also realized the importance of self-worth. For years, he had compromised his happiness to keep peace in a marriage that had already started to fray. But now, he understood the value of choosing himself, of setting boundaries, and of letting go when love was no longer reciprocated. As he gazed at Mia and Logan playing in the yard, Ethan smiled. Life hadn't turned out the way he'd planned, but it wasn't over. It was a chance to start anew, with his kids, his work, and maybe even someone like Rachel. Hope wasn't just a distant possibility anymore. It was here, alive and waiting for him to embrace it. And that's the story of how Ethan took control of his life after betrayal and turned heartbreak into a fresh start. It wasn't easy, but it showed the power of resilience and the importance of valuing yourself, even when the odds are stacked against you. What would you have done in Ethan's shoes? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Unheard Stories, and turn on notifications so you never miss a gripping tale of betrayal, revenge, and redemption. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the end of one chapter is just the beginning of a better story. See you in the next video.